بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضي الله تعالى عنه وسادة التابعين وعلماء آمنين وأئمة أربعة المجتهدين ومخلديهم إلى يوم الدين وبعد. So we're gonna continue our Seerah class, but we are gonna do something a little different. I'm switching books because the objective of the first book that we went over, that was the book Imam Nawawi, was to kind of like to familiarize you with key points to the life of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This particular book I'm going to use is Imam Nadawi, his Seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So it'll go into specifics, about the life of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It'll give you more detail. It'll give you more detail about events that happened and so on and so forth. As soon as I find the book, I don't know why I didn't set it up to be prepared ahead of time. Not bad, y'all. Got a lot going on in my life. And what's crazy is I had it all week. And now, for some reason, I can't find it right this moment. So it's going to pop up, and inshallah, we'll get started. Oh, I'm bugging. I know exactly where it's at. I think. Mm. Yeah. So remember the thing that's important when dealing with history of any sort: names, places, dates, right? Come on, Omar, you taking away from the bottle cap, man. You gotta sit close, man. Names, places, and events and dates are very important. So this book is a real good serial book. They use it. I know they use it in the madrasas over in the UK. It was written by Sheikh Abul Hassan Ali Nadawi. He's a contemporary. Uh, Inshallah, in the future, I'm gonna start using PowerPoints. So I just want to show y'all real quick. Y'all just like take a quick look. This is the area that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam set up, was dealing with during his time, the region. Right. This here, you have this right here. This is what's known as modern day Saudi, and then you have like the Red Sea, India, and then you got Egypt over here. All those places that they were dealing with. I'll put it in a group so that y'all have, a picture of them. So anyway, so he starts off, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. He starts off by talking about the period of Jahiliyyah. And Jahiliyyah was that period of ignorance before Islam, right? The ignorance that took place before Islam. So he said after Prophet Isa ibn Maryam, there was a long period where the people didn't have no prophet because Allah would constantly send prophets and messengers, right? And in the previous revelations, in the books of the Jews and the Christians, it was talked about the coming of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about his arrival. It didn't give a date. It didn't say. It's pretty much similar to the same thing about the sa'a, the hour that's coming in Yom Qiyamah, the day of standing. Right? We know about it, but we don't know its exact dates. All of the minor signs of the hour is already passed. Right? The next major sign we're waiting for from amongst the hour is the Dajjal, the return of Isa ibn Maryam, the arrival of the Mahdi, and things of that nature, the beasts that have come out the corner of the earth. We're waiting for those type of things, but a lot of those things that's been told by the Prophet Sallallahu has already occurred. Like even one in the Hadith of Jibril, where it talks about the building the tall buildings, right? The desert Arab will compete. I think the tallest building in the world right now, it was in it used to be in Dubai, but I think it's in Egypt now. So, but it switches because they're constantly competing with one another, who's going to keep building the tallest buildings. So anyway, so he said that there was a long period, there was no prophet. So therefore, that the nur, that light, and when they refer to light, they're talking about righteous, brightness, right? Like when you go somewhere where it's real, like a real bad area, what's usually like the description of that area is dark, right? And darkness. It don't even have to be literally dark, but just that area, just the aura of the people is dark, right? Like when you can see the believers, they have a certain characteristic about them. And this will also be a characteristic in Jannah, as the Prophet ﷺ informed us about as well, is at the house, the people at the pool meeting up with the Prophet ﷺ, their limbs will glow from their making wudu in the dunya. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi.
It's finished?
Yes.
Okay, there's no second Jumu'ah?
No.
No? Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh. So the light is dim. The person, the limbs. If you're a person who makes salat, is a light. When you emulate the Prophet ﷺ, there's a light. There's a certain aura about the people, right? But anyway, it said Christianity, they fell into dispute and became like sport and corrupt, and it had a plethora of hypocrites, right? From the very beginning. Christianity had been subjected to alteration by extremists and to interpretations by the ignorant. And if you look at what's happening in today's time with Islam, the same thing. You got people that are extreme, right? They're extreme in matters, and then you got people that are so ignorant, they're making their own interpretation. You're living in that right now, which is a sign and an indicator to us is that we have to keep the tradition and keep the proper Islam alive by studying, by practicing, and by teaching. Right? You can forget all the white noise that's in the background. Just those three things there. The average person, the everyday person should be focusing on studying their Islam, right? Practicing their Islam, teaching their Islam, acquiring some sort of skill so that you can make money, or coming up with a business plan so that you can make money. And that will help you spread, that'll help you continue to grow and spread Islam. So anyway, he said the simple teachings of Isa ibn Maryam was buried beneath the transgressions and their evil behaviors. Right? I think it was the current, I don't know if he's a prince, king, whatever, the dude MBS over in Saudi. He was just trying to build a big, the Prophet ﷺ kicked all kuffar out of the Arabian Peninsula. He said that they were banned. So, but anyway, there's kuffar that lives amongst, the people there in there. So now they were trying to build like a religious center, and I'll use that word, because they were on this Abrahamic faith thing. They were trying to build a building that hosted the concept of a synagogue, a church, and a masjid all in one. and they were trying to compile one big book that had the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah all in one book. The scholars there, alhamdulillah, they gave fatwa against it. They said this is an act of kufr. Anybody who does this, it'd be a disbeliever. So anyway, it said the Jews, the Jews, they became a society that was obsessed with the rights and the rules, lacking all life and spirit. Apart from that, Judaism, a tribal religion, did not carry a message to the world, nor summon other nations, nor mercy to humanity at large. And this is true. If you look at Judaism or Judaism, right? They're only concerned about themselves. They don't care about giving dawah. They don't care. Matter of fact, they're the chosen people. And if you wasn't born Jewish through your mother's lineage, basically you on the path to hellfire. Everybody else is Gentiles, right? Now, so the Magians were devoted to worshiping fire, and they built altars and shrines out of fire. And outside the shrines, they followed their own desires too. Eventually, no difference would whatever could be discerned between the Magians and those with no religion or morality. And this is how Islam is starting to look too, but not because of Islam itself, but because of the Muslims not practicing, right? Everybody's claiming to be Muslim, but they're doing everything else that everybody else is doing, right? So understand that they're talking about Jahiliyyah, right? Now, what you're extracting from all of this is not just Jew, not just Christian, not just fire worshiper, but you're seeing that they lacked the dedication to what they were supposed to be about, and then eventually they started looking like everybody else. And this is exactly what's happening as time progresses. He mentions about Buddhism, a religion widespread in India and Central Asia, was transformed into outright paganism, right? Altars were built, images of Buddha was set up wherever it went. Hinduism, the basic religion of India, is distinguished by its millions of idols and gods and by unjust separation that exists between its caste system, its discrimination between the caste system being harsh to reality of daily life. And so why is all this being mentioned? So that you have an overall understanding of other people, because most of the people that you're dealing with are in America, outside of those who are foundational Black Americans and white Americans that are here. Many of the people are migrants. They're coming from different places, and most of them are coming from this different background. So you see a little bit of the wisdom in the author where he's writing this. And of course, he was from the I think he was Indian. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but he was from the Southeast Asia. So he's writing on this and writing about the reality that's in here while also bridging the gap of those things that are old. So it's painting you a vivid understanding, because what was the name of the chapter? What was the name of the beginning of the chapter? Y'all remember? You gotta pay attention. You gotta memorize. What was the name of the beginning of the chapter? We're not talking about Islam, right? Not right this moment. So what are we talking about? The different periods of what? Jahiliyyah, ignorance. All this is all Jahiliyyah. All this is all ignorance, right? So he said that the Arabs suffered from paganism and idol worship, which was the worst kind, that had no parallel even to the paganism of Hindus, right? They were involved in shirk, adopted gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every tribe and region or city had a particular idol. Indeed, every household had a private idol, right? And an idol is like their little god that they worship, right? Like people will turn a hairbrush into a god. They'd be like, listen, man, this is the god of waves. If I if I brush my hair, then the God will bless me with waves. So I have to give money, in the name of the God. People do that. They just make up their own religion. Indeed, every household had a private idol. Inside the Kaaba, the house which Ibrahim alayhi salam had built for worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And it was also there also was 360 idols inside the Kaaba. So
This is before.
yeah, this is before Islam. All this is before Islam. And so when he makes that comparison, like he makes a segue, he said the Arabs suffer from a paganism and idol worship of the most, like the worst kind. It doesn't mean that Hinduism or Buddhism or all that is better. It's just saying like because Allah Ta'ala sent the Prophet something to correct it, right? So it's at its pinnacle. So anything after that is it kufr is kufr, shirk is shirk. But that was it. That was it because Allah sent the Prophet at that time to fix that. So then he mentions about, let me see how many more pages left. And okay. We'll finish this chapter today, inshallah. So he talks about Jazarat al-Arab, the Arabian Peninsula, right? He said the morals of the Arabs were corrupted. They were obsessed with drinking and gambling. Their cruelty and their so-called zeal reached a point where they buried baby girls alive because they felt that it was a curse to have a daughter, right? And they took and buried, will bury their daughters alive. They said raiding as well as highway robbery, right? People will basically go again. Basically it was like GTA on steroids. Because if you play GTA, what do you do in GTA? All you do is rob, steal, do missions, and all the missions is about looting. And then when y'all gang up online, what y'all doing online? You ganging up to do what? Go get some, ganging up to rob, steal, and loot. So it was like GTA. Maybe you need a vivid anything equivalent to thinking of how it was before Islam arrived. It was like GTA, right? They was, if there was a caravan coming, and even today, people do it today. They just don't call it raiding, right? Like if y'all pay attention to the news, y'all heard about the incident with the seafood that what was it, 3 trucks or whatever, the seafood just got stolen. That's equivalent because where was the seafood going? It was probably going down there to the docks, being brought from the docks to be shipped out to take it to the distributors in order to sell it. But somebody stole it. So that's the same thing. Now, he said the position of women in the society was so low that they could be inherited like property or animals, right? Children were murdered because their parents feared poverty, right? And that would come from raising them, right? Now, the thing with what this is alluding to is talking about abortion. Modern day time it's still the same thing. A lot of people don't want children because they fear it's going to cost them too much. They're not ready and things of that nature. And some people are having abortions because they don't want to have a child with the person that that impregnated them. Right? They'd be like, "Nah, I don't see you as a good father. I don't see you as a good mother. You should get rid of the baby." No matter what your intention is, it's still wrong. Abortion is wrong all the way across the board. It doesn't matter what your intention is, right? And it's funny because this is a talk of the presidential elections, whether or not you're able to have an abortion, without the state being involved. So anyway, the Arabs were fond of war. They always wanted to fight and they didn't hesitate to shed blood. What's happening now? Bloodshed, right? If you closed your eyes and didn't know no better, you thought you was talking about, current day Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, LA, every major city in the United States. He said a minor incident could stir up a war lasting for many years, and thousands of people would lose their lives. How long 30th Street been warring with 27th Street? Forever, before we was probably born, right? So, but anyway, so they're talking about the corruption now. The corruption is short. At the time, mankind was on a suicidal course. Man had forgotten his creator and was oblivious of himself. He didn't understand himself. And this is why people do what they do today, where they tap themselves up, all this artwork and things of that nature. They claiming to be boys when they're girls and girls to be boys, becoming transmissioners and everything else. We've lost ourselves. We really don't know who we are, right? So, and this is the proof of it. And they forgot who their creator is. When you say that you were actually a girl, but you were born a boy, then you're saying on Allah Ta'ala didn't create you. It was a mistake, right? Now to be like, and this is disbelief, right? So he lost the ability to distinguish between good and evil, right? Because it looks the same to you. Good and evil, evil is good. Remember that vampire in Brooklyn? Evil is good, right? But anyway, what is beautiful is now what's ugly, and throughout the vast regions, no one was concerned with the dean at all, and no one worshiped his Lord without associating something with him, right? Like, so example of this is a person that's superstitious, right? A person is superstition, they'll be like, yo, what's a common superstition? I can tell you one from my own family. My aunt, she used to have this little pendant in her car that she used to rub it every time she got in the car and say this, this angel's gonna protect me. It's for good luck, right? That's that's kufr, because the protection is comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us that even if humanity got together to harm you, then nothing can harm you except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Another constant common practice that people disbelief do and misguided Muslims do today is read daily horoscopes. Reading horoscopes and believing in them is an act of disbelief, right? So you have to be careful. It's I'm reading the horoscope. Oh, it's just telling me going to gypsies. That just still exists. Palm readers and stuff like that. That stuff is an act of disbelief. But anyway, um, so they had no concern about that throughout the region. No one was concerned with the deen at all, and they didn't worship their Lord without associating something with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah Ta'ala spoke the truth when he said in the Quran in Surah 30, ayat 40, 41, he says, corruption has appeared in the land and the sea through the what the hands of the people have earned, and that he may let them take some part of that which they have done, and to perhaps they'll return, right? So it's talking about the corruption, and Allah Ta'ala lets you go ahead, you further, because you got to return back to Allah Ta'ala. And you deliberately chose to disobey Allah and to go against Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So, go ahead. So, you can't get in them in your mind state. And this was the difference between the believers and these people of Jahiliyyah that you're talking about in even current day time. The believers believe and know that you're going to be questioned, and Allah Ta'ala will reward you or punish you, and so they act accordingly. If you want the reward of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, then you're going to do good. You're going to act good. If you want the punishment of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, you're just going to do whatever the heck you want to do, right? So then he mentions, this is the last section, inshallah, and then we're done. He said, the category of this is that the Prophet ﷺ was sent to the Arab Peninsula. Allah Ta'ala chose the Arabs to receive the call to Islam to convey it to the furthest corner of the world. These people were simple-hearted, with no complicated ideologies, which would have been difficult to remove. While Greeks, Persians, people of India were ignorant about their many sciences and their fine literature and their splendid civilizations, and the Arab followed only simple traditions related to their desert existence, right? So basically, you go to some societies or some people, they have such a rich history in their disbelief. That's one of the hardest things for them to do, is to leave that and accept Islam. But what he was saying was the Arab people, they didn't really have much. They had a very simple lifestyle. And people with simple lifestyle are always susceptible for change. They're open to the idea of change, or it's easy to tap through and get through to them, right? There's some people where you got to talk to them, no matter how long you talk to them. That joint, like the worst people to talk to now is these so-called woke Kemet Egyptologists people. Yo, them dudes like talking to a wall. And when they finish one ounce, Yahamakullah, 1 ounce of kufr, they bring in another one. They be like, oh, what about this? What about that? I had a debate one time on South Street. This is before cameras was popular. If it was, I probably would have been recorded that day. We had like a big circle out there. We was just going at it. I was arguing with some pagans. That's literally what they said. They followed the religion of paganism. and they had some strange beliefs. They believe the earth is a woman's vajayjay. And amongst other things. But that was interesting though. But we had a nice little debate for like 60 to 75 minutes. But anyway, now the Arabs were in a natural state, and when it was difficult for them to grasp the truth, they fought it. However, when the covering was removed from their eyes, they welcomed a new beginning and having embraced it and would risk their lives for it. And they were honest and trustworthy, hardy, courageous. They were good horsemen. They also possessed a will of iron. In Mecca, a city in the Arabian Peninsula, was was the Kaaba, which was built by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail, his son alayhi salam. In it, Allah alone was to be worshipped, and it was the center for calling people to Tawheed for all time. And Tawheed means that oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a sharp contrast with which is the opposite of worshiping idols. And Allah Ta'ala, He said in the Quran in Surah 3, Ayat 97, the first house established for people was that at Bakka. Bakka was the name of Mecca before they started referring to it as Mecca. It was referred to as Bakka, right? And it was a blessed place and a guidance for the world. So this gives you you should come out with an understanding of this. It's recorded too, so you can go back and listen to it to review it. But you get an idea of what it looked like before Islam arrived. And in short, in modern day, today's time, you can understand GTA, right? Right, Umar? What they do in GTA?
Rob people.
They rob people. What else they do? What else they do in GTA?
Shoot people.
They shoot people. What else they do?
Rob stores.
Rob stores. What else they do?
They drive around.
They drive around. What about they got strip clubs in GTA? Right? All of that stuff that you see on GTA and what you see in today's time, right? It's crazy, but this is how I want you to understand this, because I want you to be able to take this class for everyone, and for old and young alike, and the young mind, open your mind and understand that if we're living in this kind type of times, then this is not a good sign. Because when you know better, you do better, right? If you got a love for a thing, you're not gonna want to change it, right? If you love eating pork, you're not gonna try to change that. You know how many people I gave dawah to, and they be like, man, I will become Muslim, man. I believe everything y'all talking about, man, but I can't give up that pork. I was raised on it. When you love a thing, you're not gonna try to abandon it, right? So, you gotta understand the first line in change is accepting the fact. It sound like I'm about to do some psychological love therapy, but it's accepting accountability. Is that is really the truth. Some of that stuff is actually destroying Muslim families, though. A lot of that psychology stuff, because there's a certain decorum, a certain adab, and there's a certain philosophy that the Muslim carry about our family, and that it can't never go parallel with the kuffar. Like, for instance, a man is to be respected on a particular level, and there's nothing that can change that. You know, with that, within his family, you gotta be respected on a certain level. There's a certain level of respect of women, in all of, when I'm saying women, I'm talking about mothers, daughters, sisters, that's all connected with it, and you can't throw that away. Sometimes listening to some of these family psychologists, and I'm not saying that some of the information isn't useful, but what I am saying is that you can't throw Islam out the window. Everything that we need in Islam, we have it, right? Those things that those counselors and coaches and therapists and stuff that they provide, if it's something that's in agreement with Islam, it's Islamic. It's not psychology, it's Islamic, Those things that don't agree with Islam, we reject it, and that goes back to the psychologists and therapists because we don't stand on any type of corruption or kufr or anything of that nature. So with that, inshallah, we'll stop there. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Any comments, questions? Any questions, anybody? Everybody understood everything? Be not good. All right, well, in my online stream, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.